Hi friends, Mrs. Alexander, Mrs. Dillon, and Mrs. Van Treese here. We're going to show you all about Habit 5 and how to listen before you talk and really understand others before trying to get others to understand you. Today we are going to be doing a Lego listening activity. You and your partner will get a bag of Legos. Mrs. Van Treese and Mrs. Dillon have put their Legos on the floor, and the first thing they have to do is split their Legos in half. Each partner should have the same Legos when they're splitting. Mrs. Dillon and Mrs. Van Treese, can you both pick up a big green piece? Since they're the same, they can each put one in their pile. Keep splitting the Legos until you both have the same Legos in your pile. Each partner should have 8 Legos. They're carefully checking the pieces to make sure the pieces are the same. It's important that partners have the same Legos to complete the activity. Great. They each have the same Legos, so now it's time for them to sit back to back. Put your Legos in front of you so you're ready to build. One partner will start by being the builder. Raise your hand if you would like to start being the builder. Mrs. Dillon, you will be the builder first. Mrs. Dillon, use your Legos to build something. Then we are going to use your words to describe it to Mrs. Van Treese. Before we talk, Mrs. Dillon, you want to get your whole tower built before you give Mrs. Van Treese directions. We're going to watch which pieces Mrs. Dillon puts on the bottom and on top of that. And then we're going to listen as Mrs. Dillon describes this. Mrs. Dillon, is your tower complete? All right, Mrs. Van Treese, I want you to listen very carefully as Mrs. Dillon tells you exactly what to build. Go ahead, Mrs. Dillon.
On the bottom, start with a big green piece. Next, put on a big red piece. Next, put on a big yellow piece. Now we're going to use the smaller Legos. Start with the blue next and put it on top of the big yellow piece. On top of the blue one, you're going to put a red one, but there's 2 red ones. So use the red one that has the big hump on the side that looks like a hill. And the big hump with the hill goes on top of the blue.
It's looking good so far.
On top of the red one, put the smaller green one.
Can you repeat that? I didn't quite understand you.
Yes. On top of the red one with the hill, find the next small green one.
Got it. Thank you.
Next, put on your small yellow. And on the very top is the small red one without the hump. And you should have one tall tower with the big green on the bottom and the little red on top.
All right, friends, let's turn around and check to see if your designs are the same. Can you turn and share and see? They look pretty close. I noticed Mrs. Van Treese was a good listener to Mrs. Dillon, and their towers look almost the same. Now, this time when you try the activity, Mrs. Van Treese gets to build and try to get Mrs. Dillon to build the same. Remember, don't turn around and look. We're just using our listening ears for this activity. Great job, friends.